All right, guys, so the Republicans have responded to the Democrats in regards to the demands that President Trump has made for the politicians, in which he said, first and foremost, he wants to up the payment for Americans to $2,000 per person as relief for this pandemic. Second of all, which is probably just as important as the first request that everybody seems to be forgetting about, the president says he wants to clean out the pork. Okay, clean it out. We're spending money on unnecessary things that have pissed off everybody in America right now. There's no way that you can be shutting down small business, telling Americans they can't work, taking away people's livelihoods. People can't feed their families because of a pandemic that they did not cause, okay? Because of politicians who don't even want to follow the rules that they set in place. But yet we have money to send abroad to this country, that country, to study this, to study that, to count fish, to study trees knocking down, to fund all types of crazy nonsense. But yet when Americans ask for a little piece, hey, can we get a little bit of help here? We're struggling. They want to just give us $600. So President Trump said, clean this up. This ain't enough. This ain't good. As a recap, the Democrats came out and said, you know what? All right, we will do the 2,000. We agree, Mr. President. Pelosi came out, AOC came out, Bernie came out, all of them came out and said, we're going to meet you halfway on the 2,000. Now, a lot of people thought this is weird. The Democrats are jumping at this very, very quickly, and rightfully so, because it's become apparent that the Democrats forgot about the other half of the request. The other half of the request is to also clean out the pork. Okay, we gotta have both. We can't do one without the other. We didn't say we want the checks and you can also still send money abroad to other folks. No. The president said clean out the pork and help the American people. Okay, Democrats seem to be missing that, but the Republicans have responded. So I'm going to go over what the current response is and where we stand. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, aka a leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get it. All right, guys. So that was a long introduction. I apologize. But just want to make sure you guys have a good background on what I'm going to be talking about here. So the GOP has responded, and it looks like the House GOP says that Pelosi can't get the unanimous vote for the 2K stimulus checks. Now, on paper, this seems bad, but let's see what they're talking about. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, a Republican from California, told fellow Republicans on a Wednesday afternoon call that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi won't succeed in her bid for unanimous consent to pass $2,000 COVID-19 stimulus checks on Thursday. Now, remember, Pelosi came out and said they're going to hold a unanimous consent vote on Thursday, on Christmas Eve. And basically, the whole point of the unanimous consent thing, it's really a political game where they say, you know what, let's speed up this process. Let's vote now. And if everybody agrees, then you're good. But if somebody objects, then there's a regular vote that will be held in a later date, which will probably be Monday. So if somebody objects, that doesn't mean that the $2,000 is over. It doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means that they're going to have a regular vote for it on a later date. Pelosi's proposed Christmas Eve vote will follow President Trump's unexpected refusal Tuesday to sign a $2.3 trillion pandemic stimulus and government funding bill, saying its $600 stimulus checks should be $2,000. Trump also objected to the extraneous funding, including bills and foreign aid. Quote, House Democrats appear to be suffering from selective hearing, McCarthy wrote in a Wednesday night letter to House Republicans. Quote, they have conveniently ignored the concerns expressed by the president and shared by our constituents that we ought to re-examine how our tax dollars are spent overseas while so many of our neighbors at home are struggling to make ends meet. All right, so that's a true statement. I mean, let's keep it real. Democrats have ignored that second part of the request, okay? For obvious reasons. Obviously, they're fine with sending money overseas to this country, that country, for gender equality and gender studies and all this other stuff. I mean, because they try to promote that type of stuff here, right, at our university. So they probably try to promote it overseas. It's probably a part of their globalist agenda. But this is a key point. A lot of people feel like we need both. We gotta have both, right? McCarthy wrote that Republicans would offer a competing proposal for unanimous House action on Thursday, which would likely be shot down by Democrats. Quote, Republicans will offer a unanimous consent request to revisit the state and foreign operations title of the omnibus so that we can fully address the concerns at hand, McCarthy wrote. Quote, it will be up to Speaker Pelosi to decide if she wants to act on behalf of the American people. Okay. So this is really, really, really key here, okay? Because what McCarthy is offering here is to say, hey, Pelosi, you want to have a unanimous consent vote on the 2K checks? Fine. Let's have a unanimous consent vote on cleaning up the omnibus bill. This is good and it's bad because I'm going to keep it real with you guys. In order to get what we want, which is to clean up the omnibus bill and to get more compensation for being left behind by the government, it's going to take time, right? It's going to take at least a month, right? You guys all seen that 5,000 page bill. And by the way, the people that write those bills are not the politicians. They're the lobbyists. The lobbyists that come in and lobby the politicians and put in special interests. They write those bills. So for all the politicians to go through this bill and to get rid of all the pork that's actually needed in a 5,000-6,000 page bill, it's going to take a long time, right? So that's the only caveat here. And that's why a lot of people are saying, let's just pause on the spending bill. Let's reevaluate that. But let's just have a clean bill for right now for $2,000. Leave out all the special interest. Let's just have a clean bill, right? Now, the alternative to that also is not just a clean bill with the $2,000. It also can include the unemployment. It also can include the assistance for small business and the coronavirus aid as well, too, right? Like, that also could be a second alternative to a clean bill. They just need to take out the special interest. That would be a lot easier because there are special interests in the COVID relief bill. But the special interest that most people are talking about in the waste, fraud, and abuse is in the omnibus spending bill that they pass every single year. So that's an interesting dynamic. We will see what happens on that. But it is unclear which Republican will object to Pelosi's request for unanimous consent. Basically, they're saying the Republican is definitely going to reject. Again, that doesn't kill the bill. It just pushes the vote down the road. It's possible that McCarthy himself will object, noting Pelosi's measure would not gut the just passed package of its bloat. That's McCarthy on that. Another Republican spoke out yesterday, Peter King from New York, and he blasted the president. He called out President Trump on Wednesday for reversing course on direct payments to America after Congress finally reached a long-awaited deal on a economic relief package. And guys, I'm just reading this. I'm just telling you what he said. Obviously, I don't agree with his opinion. I'm just reading it. Calling into the radio show, Joe Pisco's show, the New York Republican said he agreed with those who think the $600 stimulus checks approved by lawmakers Monday aren't enough, but criticized the president for threatening to not sign the legislation. Quote, why didn't the president say this before? Why did his administration say it had to be 600? King asked. They were the ones driving this. All right, that's bullshit. Because we've all seen the president call for stimulus checks for a long, long time. Ever since October, guys. We've all seen it. So, I mean, that's just bullshit to say he hasn't been calling for it and he didn't want it. The retired congressman added, Quote, Nancy Pelosi wanted $2,000 all along, and I'm not a fan of Pelosi. Bernie Sanders wanted $2,000. The president and his administration refused to give it, and now they're trying to somehow double back. He's leaving Republicans out there hanging to dry after signing off on an agreement and asking us to vote for it. All right, so that's what Republican Peter King is saying. He's basically pissed because he thinks that President Trump threw him under the bus. All right, now let's take a look at Rand Paul, who has come out vehemently against spending at all, right? He's in the best stimulus for the economy is to open up the economy camp, which I 100% agree with, right? You will get no objections on that from me. So let's listen to what he has to say.
React to the recent developments, because it's been exposed how much pork is in this. When you tie an omnibus to an emergency bill like COVID-19, everyone throws their prerogatives of Washington into the bill. Is there a way in which, if some of that was stripped out, you could support one-time additional payments to individuals beyond 600, or is it both that you object to, sir?
You know, it'd be great if there were actually that alternative. If they said, oh, we'll quit spending money on selfies to see if selfies make you happy, or we'll quit sending money on the mating call of Panamanian frogs. But guess what? They never do that. They always add it. No one ever takes away any spending. That's my big gripe. It is, of course, Festivus, so I can tell you why I'm unhappy with all these jokers. The thing is they never take away wasteful spending. They only add more to it. And the bottom line is the only way we recover as economy is we've got to open the economy up. Unemployment is actually lower than it was during most of President Obama's term. So we really can recover, but we got to get these governors out of the way of our restaurants and our bars and our venues. We got to get the economy opened up. Is the only way we survive this.
You know, Senator, one of the most important things I think that you said in that floor speech is that Congress is enabling lockdown behavior from Democrats who have taken this way too far in terms of stifling their own economies. But in the meantime, President Trump last night said that he wants $2,000 checks going out. Is that something that the Senate and Congress can do before next week?
You know, I saw the president's speech, and we've actually included it this morning as part of our Festivus celebration because he was on a rant, and so am I. He was unhappy with all the spending to Pakistan and Sudan and all these far-flung places. Well, we aren't taking care of our own. The problem is if we were to get more money to Americans, we would add it on top. If it were an either or, it'd be a little bit different situation. But I can tell you from experience in Washington, these jokers never replace spending. I've asked for it all along. Like I've asked them, look, if you want to build infrastructure in our country, quit spending $50 billion a year on infrastructure in Afghanistan. But I never get them to bite. They'll add it on, but they'll never do the responsible thing and exchange wasteful spending for useful spending.
Senator, I've long said that fiscal conservatives is now an exhibit at the Smithsonian to go and see from the 90s because both parties are spending like drunken sailors, it seems, in the last decade or more. But my question to you this morning is, so what do we do at this very moment? Pete talked about it a little bit earlier this morning about whether something could actually be done, or does what the president has done now put Mitch McConnell and Republicans in a very difficult spot here at the end of the year?
Yeah, the thing is you need better people. There was only 6 or 7 of us who, opposed this smorgasbord of debt. But if you ask the American people, should we spend money we don't have? Should we run a balanced budget? I'll bet you 75% of Republicans will tell you they'd rather have conservatives in Washington. The people in Washington run as conservatives. Like when President Obama was in power, they said it was terrible, the spending and the debt and all this, and now they're no better. I told people in my speech that it's not that the difference in parties is Adam Smith versus Marx. It's really Marx versus Engels. And I don't think they're happy to hear that, but they're always talking about socialism, and so am I. But that bill yesterday was a bunch of socialist spending. And if you voted for it, you're no better than the Democrats. And so that's the problem we have. People need to get involved in primaries and elect better people. But the people in Washington are bankrupting us, both parties.
All right, so you guys hear Rand Paul's opinion on that. Essentially, he's calling for no spending. He's saying, let's go clean up the pork out of the bill. And we may be able to consider, spending the money at home. Now, I'm going to include this part in here because it would be disingenuous for me not to include this part that Rand Paul addresses the stimulus checks directly because the first 2 questions, he kind of avoided giving an answer, but then at the end, he just goes all in on it. So I do want to show you guys that, because I want to make sure you guys have a clear perspective on, you know, who's for what the president is saying and who's not, and where they all align. I'm just trying to clearly show you where the politicians are at on this.
If the president does veto this legislation, will you vote to override?
You know, the thing is that I hope he vetoes it, but the only way I would vote for any spending or any additional spending is if it came out of existing spending. So if they want to cut the $30 billion we shovel and send overseas, I'm happy to vote for that, and we can discuss where we can spend it here in our country. I think there are a lot of things. I think giving money, though, to people who are already working. Look, my kids are working and don't need a check. They're not rich, but they don't need a check. And most working Americans don't need a check right now. It's a really foolish, egg-headed, left-wing socialist idea to pass out free money to people. So I part ways with the president on giving people free money. We should help those who are unemployed by extending unemployment, but we shouldn't add to unemployment. There are things we can do. Look, in 2008, President Obama extended unemployment. They didn't juice it up by giving people more money not to work than they work. So we've done a lot of terrible ideas that are much worse than what we criticized President Obama. President Obama is now a conservative when it comes to stimulus, because his unemployment didn't juice it up. He just extended it. We didn't give cash payments back then, but the cash payments is a ridiculous, terrible, foolish, no good idea, because you're just printing out money to give to people. Why not do it all the time? Give people 1,000, 10,000, why not 1 million? It's a terrible idea, and it's going to ruin the value of our currency ultimately.
All right, guys. So you hear Rand Paul's argument on that. He basically called stimulus checks a stupid idea, it's boneheaded, and it's socialist, according to him. So let's take a look at the actual federal deficits over time, so you guys can get a good look at kind of the things that Rand Paul is talking about here. So the last time we actually ran a surplus in our deficit was 2001, which was when George Bush took office, and right after Bill Clinton left. And then after that, it really went up a lot under the first year of Obama in 2009, when we had a Great Recession. And then it was still kind of out of control for a little bit. Then under President Trump, it squeaked up just a little bit here, but not as bad as the Obama era years. And then look at COVID. We had a higher deficit than we've ever had in our lifetime. So again, you know, I always say this, the debt to GDP ratio is at 130% right now, or close to that. This is where we're at. So, you know, what Rand Paul is saying has some merit to it, in the sense that, you know, we are spending more money than we've ever spent before, and doing another stimulus bill is only going to add to that. Now, you guys know I stand on this bill, right? Like, you guys know that I think we should get the American people help, but I also believe that we need to definitely get our spending under control, and that we're spending our money on very wasteful things. If we're going to spend money, I'd rather spend it on the American people. And you can see our total public debt here has went up tremendously. We're almost at 27 trillion right now in total public debt. So, you know, these are the things that Rand Paul is talking about. And at this point, I just want to outline to you guys kind of what the Republicans were saying about this, because Mitch McConnell hasn't said anything. So when this video comes out, which will be on Christmas Eve morning, I just want to prepare you guys for what's going to happen today. Now, who knows, right? What I'm saying could change. Who knows? The minority leader in the House could all of a sudden come out, and the Republicans could vote unanimously for the $2,000 stimulus checks. But it doesn't look like it, based off the information that they sent to their colleagues, you know, the day before. So we'll see. That doesn't mean it's over. It just means that this is going to take a lot longer than just a weekend. It's going to take probably at least 2 to 3 weeks for us to really get somewhere. Because, guys, remember, the only time the Republicans and Democrats actually ever agreed on anything is when they discussed it in detail and worked out the details first, and then they voted. They rarely, if ever, agree on anything when they just want to vote on it before actually discussing it. They always come together, discuss, agree, work out the details, and then they vote. This voting before actually discussing anything type stuff, it don't look too good, right? In terms of them coming together on agreement. But who knows? Maybe this is different because, again, this stimulus, a lot of people feel like, you know, the American people need help, and they need help now, and they need something. President Trump is calling for more. The politically expedient thing to do for both parties is to have a clean bill for the $2,000 stimulus, really, and just clean out all the special interests in the COVID-19 relief package. Push the spending bill down the road. Keep the government open for a little bit more longer. Come back to work. Negotiate the spending bill. Get all that stuff out. But get a clean COVID-19 relief bill. Get the president to sign that, and then work on the spending bill later. That's what they really should do at this point. But politicians don't do logical and common sense things. That's not how politics works. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.